around a tin can, all around. You put an ant on it, he keeps going around and around. He doesn't say, wait a while. He doesn't walk off unless you paint the formic acid off the can. And I began to investigate insect behavior. Do insects have free choice? Are they forced to behave as they do? I asked how come fish and birds can migrate thousands of miles without blueprints, of how to get there. And I found out that birds later travel the Earth's magnetic currents. If you glue a magnet to a pigeon's head, they don't migrate. Magnet disturbs their detection. Fish swim up magnetic currents in the ocean, and they find other fish by magnetic radiation, even though they're under the sand. So I then became interested in the mechanisms that enable animals to do certain things. In school, they used to tell me that an animal has horns to defend itself, that nature did that. So I thought, yeah, that looks that way. But then I noticed a rabbit doesn't have any horns. So I said, where are the horns on a rabbit? Then I found when two turtles fight each other, if they succeed in turning the turtle over, the turtle can't straighten out again because the legs move, but he can't turn over. So I figured if the turtle was born with a point on his back, he couldn't be turned over. And people say the reason that the turtle has a point on his back, so nature didn't want him to be turned over. See, man projects eyes, eyebrows, nose to breathe with, and eyes to see with. So the first scientific person I met that came to my lab and said, we have eyes to see with. And I said, do you really believe that? He said, yes. And I took him in a dark room and said, see. Unless the light was on, you can't see. So you have eyes and you see if there's light, but you don't have eyes to see with. There are many animals that can sense magnetic fields. They don't have eyes. A bat has very poor vision, but at night he doesn't hit anything because he works on sound feedback. So you'd say the reason a bat doesn't have eyes is not to see, but he gets sound feedback. So man says a camel has wide hoofs, so he won't sink in the sand. Camels have wide hoofs, and they don't sink in sand. They don't have wide hoofs not to sink in the sand. I don't know if you understand that. People do not have ears to hear with. They have ears and they hear. Some animals can feel vibration in the ground. They don't have ears. So they say you have teeth to chew food. A jellyfish doesn't have teeth, and it does not digest food. Insects, when they land on you, they inject an anticoagulant so the blood doesn't coagulate, and then they can suck up the blood. So they say that, why are insects here? The insects will annoy you. Why don't you put the whole thing there? They say you have eyebrows, so sweat will be taken off to the side. That's man's projection. What is coughing and sneezing for? To infect other people? You have to put the whole works down. You have eyes to see with, you have your cough to launch germs at other people. They only look at the nice things. Says you have a beard, so if you fall on your chin, you don't stuff it. You know what I mean? Well, he can do that. They said war, that's to keep the population from being too large. All kinds of shit like that. War is based on stupidity because they don't know how to solve problems of scarcity. Now you can say war keeps the population down. You can find use in anything. You understand? Okay.
Animals? Animals? Any other testing experiments with animals?
Well, I wanted to see how far I can go with dogs. So I put a stick in a dog's mouth and tried to teach him to draw. But the way you do it is you signal the dog moves one step forward, one step back, and it comes out like a drawing. But the dog doesn't know he's drawing. And I used to teach animals to behave a certain way, like the pig experiment, which I told you about. And I wanted to see if I can teach kids to learn how to draw without variations in grade. The variations do occur for the first few weeks, then they all become good at it. Variations has to do with the background. So I get their background, and when they all draw, they draw so perfectly well that they can't tell who did what drawing. They all look great. So they never had differences in grade. So I try to teach kids certain scientific principles. They never had variations in grade, because you have to adjust your language to their background. So I believe that anybody can learn to be like Leonardo da Vinci. I don't think it's inborn. The geneticists are looking for the Republican gene to see if there's a gene that makes you Republican, or a gay gene, or an artistic gene. That's all crap. You have to practice drawing and learn the laws. That's the way you learn how to draw. You're not born. Well, normal people don't know how it is that he can write music when he's very young, so they say he's gifted, talented. He is a born genius. You know, just say I don't know what makes a person able. But I found out over the years how exactly a person learns to become evil, serial killer, good artist, musician, by associating in that environment.
Do you want to go over socio-cyberneering or the Venus Project or the Research Center?
Yes. Just thinking
Well,
the same thing.
Just briefly.
Socio-cyberneering was the first name that I gave to the new society. That means social engineering, to engineer society into a coherent operation. But the name was too difficult for people to remember, so we called it the Venus Project, because we started in Venus, Florida. And other than that, made a lot of mistakes teaching animals. But I found out that animals really don't learn. It seems that a bear takes baby bears out and eats certain things, and the other bears learn what to eat. But if the parents don't take them out and teach them things, they don't seem to be able to survive. And when elephants misbehave, the older elephants corner them and move them away. They do govern their behavior. But if an elephant is brought up on its own, it doesn't know how to behave. Same with a child. If a child is brought up in the slums with 6 brothers and one piece of candy, they fight over it. And when he gets old, he's always grabbing things, because he's come from scarcity. Like my mother used to tell me, eat everything in the plate. There's starving people out there in the world. She came from a scarcity country, you know what I mean? But American kids leave half the food in a place, shove it away, because they've never known hunger. Well, a lot of them have never known. So they mistreat things. You know, in Germany, for example, a kid worked as an apprentice for nothing to learn how to become a machinist. And he'd show him the part he made, and the instructor says, "Not good enough." He said, "Well, it looks good to me." He said, "No, measured at 1,000th of an inch off." And they were very strict with their apprentice. In America, they let a lot of stuff go. So the Germans became, by the nature of their culture, to do a good job. And they were very meticulous about precision machines. The Japanese became that later on. The Americans were not that good at it, because they were so many jobs and so many machines, and business was so good, they didn't work on the precision that the Germans did. The Germans had so many technicians that when we blockaded them from getting rubber, they invented their own rubber. They made synthetic rubber, because they were trained as good chemists and broad in scope. Americans were not that broad. You understand? It isn't an inborn German characteristic. It's that the German economy was smaller. And look, Germany's such a small country, and it fought the whole world.
Amazing.
So it had great ingenuity. If only we took the German ingenuity and directed it toward social design, instead of anti-this or anti-that or anti-Greeks or Swedes. The same with Sweden. Has good technicians, but not the amount of resources America has. And Sweden was better socially for a while. Now it's moving to the right, I'm told, by Swedes. But I hope when we got to Sweden, we poisoned enough people to turn them around. You have a drink?
Where's the water?
Awesome.
Anything else on your list?
Traveling?
Do you wanna bring it up to today, or what? Or
Yeah,
anything
would be
like that?
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you actually keep the research center?
I don't know.
You're not sure?
We might not have enough money to do that.
I read a lot of good books that helped me too.
Okay.
Books.
Oh, books. Yeah. Okay. So.
I've read a lot of good books. Books like Rats, Lice, and History. That's the name of the book, by Zinsser. That book told me about the bubonic plague, how it killed half of the Earth's population. And when the people went to church and said, if God loves everybody, how come they're all dying? And the minister said, the children shall suffer for the sins of the parents. And the scientist said, I don't know what's killing people. And they went and they looked all over the place with microscopes and they found out there were certain fleas that lived on rats. And if they killed the rats, they could cut down the disease. And the beginning of science was to check things out, to see what makes things happen. Not to say he's bad, he's good, he's moderate, he's fair. But to find out what makes people good, bad, fair, or anything. You understand? Science was the first thing I ever heard of. It says, let's check it out. And I like that system better than what's your opinion, what's your opinion. That was good 200 years ago. But today, you can check out the strength of materials. You understand? So science to me means checking it out. When a guy says, well, there's law, there's business, when there's science. No, there's only science. The other professions don't count because they don't do anything. If you can grow more food on less land, that's useful for people. But if you write poetry, well, people can read it and enjoy it, but it doesn't really do anything. Now, if you play the violin, people will enjoy it. Well, that might be necessary to give people music because they enjoy it, but it really doesn't do anything when you think about it. It doesn't do anything to make the world a better place. Because they say, well, classical music makes people, and reading literature makes people more humane. They go just as many wars as any other country with the classics. So the classics do not stop war. So when you say to me, well, what's the matter with literature? It doesn't stop war unless the literature shows people what makes war, then that's good. And if you find out later, which they will find out, that sound can affect people, there's what they call silent noise, different types of sounds, where people don't feel drills when the dentist is drilling. They play a certain sound in the ear. So if you begin to study sound and its effect on the nervous system, and to bring different sounds together to cause people to relax, feel great, that will be the music of the future, not just anything you think you like, they just ring together. Music is really a series of sounds that will be arranged that relax the human body, that turn off pain, that stop you from worrying. Someday we'll find out what sounds can do. Right now they're not into that. Guy sits at a piano and he likes it and he writes the music, he takes a patent out on it. But it isn't there yet. It's like a kid running a stick in the sand, the beginning of art, or some jerk splashing thing on a canvas and running a line through it. That's bullshit art. It isn't real. The real